Okay, so hello. So today I'm going to be taking a break from my 1 hour, 40 minutes of game time that I have once a day. So basically taking a break from my Zelda campaign at the moment because there was a big television debate that happened recently on September 10th between Trump and Kamala. And I'm going to be making this video probably for my family to send it to some of the people that probably aren't paying too much attention to these things to maybe help them decide if they decide to vote, and to whoever wants to watch. So again, I am not an expert in politics. I'm just a pretty basic guy. I'm just a father, and just basically do my work and take care of my students and my kids. And I just try to notice the issues that are going to not only help me and my family, but also going to help in the future for other people, people that I might not agree with, and people that I might not decide for the same things for myself. But if other people, it would work better to help their lives. I try to learn about things, and so I can make the right decisions when it comes to understand laws and politicians and all these type of things. So again, just I don't do deep research, deep research. A lot of the stuff that I check is just from paying attention to the news and just basic stuff and things that I've seen, and then I check maybe a little bit about it. And see, that's the thing. If you check even just a little bit about these things, just check just a little bit, it shows you so much that you might not notice from just hearing secondhand. So today we're going to be, again, as I said, checking out this debate. It's about an hour long, so while we're doing it, I'm going to be working on my work stuff. And just as a disclaimer, before we get started, I'm just going to be open 100%. I hate Trump. I hate him, not as just a politician. I hate him as a human being, just being honest with you. So that's my bias. Because, again, I've checked when he was going to become, as I've said in other videos, when he was going to become president the first time, I checked what did he do in the past before the eyes were on him. Because for me, that's one of the most important things. What do you do when people are not watching you? That shows your character. And when Trump was not in the spotlight as much, he was on the TV talk shows and all those type of things. And even that was already pretty bad if you paid attention to it. But what did he do when in his unpresidential life before? And it wasn't good. A lot of conning, a lot of cheating, just being a horrible, cruel businessman. And from that point, when I learned those things, I'm not going to like somebody like that, because if he did some of those things that he did to other families, if he did that to my family, what he did to other families, I would hate him. It's just not right. So that's my bias, but I'm going to try to also focus on Kamala, because I know Kamala isn't perfect, and she's not, somebody that there was other choice. If there were more choice, I would probably choose somebody else. But hey, these are the choices that we have. Another disclaimer: I've already seen this video, so this is not a reaction. It's more just commentary. Again, I listened, not really watched. I listened to this video while I was working. So I already kind of know. But again, I just remember the big points, so I'm going to go through it again and let's see if I can think of anything else to say. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into this debate. And my head's going to be kind of going down because while I'm working, but I'll be listening and kind of looking up when I need to. All right, let's get to it.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia.
Wait a minute. I need to put on my headphones. Okay, we are back with the headphones. Let's do it, baby.
Between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play.
It shouldn't be this close,
The ABC News presidential debate starts right
Biden
now.
How to be funding a goddamn genocide.
ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Again.
Historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Moore and Lindsay Davis.
Honestly, I hate these type of voices.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis.Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
That brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes
Biden
with two
got his
commercial
zombie
breaks.
ass
No
out.
topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The
That's
candidates
sad,
will
man.
have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the
Goddamn
clock.
elderly abuse.
That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National
interesting, no
Constitution
audience,
Center.
but yeah, I
this
think
is
that's
an
good.
intimate setting for two candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
So,
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
he
Welcome
does
to you
not
both. It's
want to
wonderful
see
to have you. It's an
her.
honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country.
She's 60
Vice
years
President
old.
Harris, you and President Trump were
Goddamn,
elected 4
she's
years
beautiful.
ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often
That
asks
means
his
nothing. Just
supporters,
she takes
are you
care of
better
herself.
off
That's the
than
thing.
you were 4
She
years
takes
ago?
good care of
When it
herself.
comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
Okay.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing.
Okay, real quick.
And the cost of housing is too expensive.
The big thing is right now he asked the host asked her, do you think the people basically are not feeling that the economy is benefiting them, and why is that, this type of stuff. So if you're paying attention to what she's saying, she's actually not answering the question, and I don't think it's again, this is just being basic politician type of stuff, just kind of sidestepping around the question and kind of putting in what you want to talk about. This is basic stuff, and I don't really like it. She's not directly answering the question. It's just all politicians do it. You're going to see Trump doing it even worse, though. That's the thing. He goes way off tangent just constantly. Anyways. We go way off on a tangent. Okay, let's continue.
Expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent.
So again, another big thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to be stopping it probably just to make some quick notes. Trump right now is totally fine. but you're going to notice how quickly he starts to snap. Once he starts pointing out things that he doesn't want to admit are true, you'll see how much he just starts to descend into his madness, as he usually does.
Opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump.
This is going to come up again. I'll mention it later.
I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries.
Okay.
Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't.
Okay. He's going to start going off on a bunch of bullcrap. Okay, real quick. If you're doing a tariff on a basic, like on a company, then yeah, you're kind of like basically forcing that company. You're kind of trying to punish like a company. You're trying to do tariffs on this specific company. The problem with Trump's idea, he wants to do a tariff on everything entering America. Anything that enters America from another country, he wants to put a tariff on that. What that means is a price increase on everything, which means you, the citizens, are going to have to pay that price increase. It's not going to be like some specialty item, like on a car, like this specific car that it's maybe like a luxury car from a different country. Okay, I want to just have this cool car that I really like, and I'm fine with paying extra for it. And they're kind of punishing that company. Okay, or trying to like even out, because that other country's car, like Japanese cars, are usually built very well. So to give American cars a better chance, they put tariff on Japanese cars to come to America. He wants to put a tax on everything, which means the price for everything is going to go up, not just specialty items. Everything. Your snacks, your medicine, your electronic goods, everything from what he's saying is going to be taxed, which means you have to pay for it.
It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before. Probably the worst in our nation's history.
The worst.
We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums.
Waves of people,
and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and
Blacks,
also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look
Kamala
at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country. And they're destroying our country.
They lifted the gates by hand.
They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again, and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all, in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
Okay.
That's out there.
Stop. Okay, if you don't know what Project 2025, it's basically a these groups of basically Republicans. There's different like think tanks, like basically like groups of different Republicans from kind of, you know, this group of Republicans thinks a little bit this way, this group of Republicans thinks a little this way. They basically got together and like organized their plan, like what are the most important things they want. And if Trump gets elected, they basically want to turn, just put it simply, they want to turn America into basically a theocracy, and just basically create a country with like a state religion, from what it seems. Again, just control this, that. Again, they want to just take so much power. And Trump is saying he has nothing to do with it. Basically, many of the people that were in his cabinet that he surrounded himself with, they're part of those groups. So it's very hard to believe that he has no knowledge of it. Most likely he does. And the other thing that they're not going to say in this debate is that there's another stupid plan that he made. It's called, what the hell is the name of it? Because I believe he's the 42nd president. So Project 2025, but there's another one like Agenda 42 with his presidential number. It's basically the same thing. And he created that one. He created a different plan to basically take over the government. And they're basically the same thing. There's a few little differences, but they're basically the same thing. So he's saying, oh, I don't know about this, but he has another plan that's basically the same thing. All right.
I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it.
Right.
This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad.
Some good, some bad.
It makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially.
For who?
And create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed
he pushed the medicine through. He pushed it.
Country where the economy and where the stock market was
Then
higher
his
than it
supporters
was
didn't want to
before
take
the
it.
pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns. We got masks.
Did they? We didn't freaking need them over here.
Possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic.
Not enough.
But the
Praise
only jobs
me.
they got were bounce
Praise
back jobs.
me.
These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors,
his
think
dad
my
got him
plan
in.
is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country.
Solid money.
And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up.
Okay.
The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us.
Like, he's so freaking stupid. They're going to have higher prices, but if they sell the goods here, the price will be increased for the citizens. That's what the host is trying to tell him. You're trying to create a national tax. But again, he's just rambling on about, oh, China's going to be punished. We're going to punish China. Yeah, we need China for all of our stuff, basically. They don't want to create jobs in America and pay workers enough.
Ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now.
So the problem is, again, China's paying more money for taxes, but then the people, they get the money, don't put it back into society. They just keep it for themselves.
Virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military. Basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy.
She has no
Everything
policy.
that she believed 3 years ago and 4
years
years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than...
Okay, see, here's the thing. He also just keeps, if you haven't seen his debates and stuff like that, or him talking, he just pulls numbers out of his ass constantly. And he 3 times, he keeps increasing the numbers. He'll say a number that's really high, then he'll say another number that's high, and then he'll say, actually, but I believe that it's even higher than that. He constantly, you'll see it, pay attention. Every time he gives a number, he'll constantly increase it. Like, it's this many people, but actually it's this many people, but I really think it's this many people.
The New York State pouring in, and just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals, and that's bad for our economy too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban.
Constantly
Vice President Harris
back
says
and
that
forth,
women shouldn't trust you
forth.
on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your
That's what they need to do. Let me stop it for a moment. Okay. I think Kamala's going to talk a little bit about it, and the way she talks about it, I'm remembering now, it kind of pisses me off because there's just something that needs to be said. I'll explain in a moment. But what she just did, the moderator, the host, she called out Trump's BS. That's the thing. many times, Trump and other politicians don't want to be fact-checked live. They just want to say whatever they want to say and just let it wash over the people and just let them take it home and let them think about it. They don't want to be fact-checked because they know that the people that normally watch will probably, most likely, not check it themselves. There is no state that allows you to terminate a baby after it's been born unless the baby is going to die. It's basically euthanasia. It's a horrible thing, but after a certain time, the baby. So they used the story. There was one of the politicians that said, "What are we going to do with the baby after, they dispose of the body?" That story comes from a baby that was terminally ill. And that's the thing that pisses me off with Kamala and these people. They say, "Oh, it doesn't exist." Yeah, but explain what it is. Babies are terminated after they're born, but they're going to die anyways. Or they're already dead at the moment when they're basically born. And it's a horribly sad situation for the parents, the time, and they're just making it more difficult. Many of these parents want to have their kid, but pregnancy is not an easy thing. Some people can just pop out babies like Tic Tacs. Some people can't. As I said, the doctor that took care of my kids when they were being born said just birth is a miracle. There's so many factors that can end a baby's life, or even before the egg, it doesn't set in. So having a nice healthy baby, beautiful baby is it's a blessing, and it's there's so many things that are that could go wrong, and when that happens, the abortion, it's already the termination of the baby, is usually to sadly put the baby out of its misery. Just the way it is. It's a really sad situation, but that's what it is. And they're just trying to weaponize it. Trying to weaponize a family's probably grief, something that really horrible happens, for his own political bullcrap.
Response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
It's happened.
She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term.
Happened.
They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. He went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got...
When anybody takes a day off, they're lazy. But whenever he takes most of the goddamn year off,
been part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me.
They're running mates.
I really didn't. Look,
they're supposed to be on the same page for almost everything. We don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond. But I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America.
Okay, so the way she kind of answers this, I can remember right now, she doesn't answer it directly. She's basically saying, like, I'll follow the guidelines of Roe v. Wade. So they're asking her, are there any limitations? Just the way she explains it just sounds like she's not answering the question. I know she's saying she's going to basically follow Roe v. Wade. She wants to reinstall Roe v. Wade. Check what Roe v. Wade is, basically. The abortion, basically, rules and stuff like that Trump basically canceled. Just the way she explains it, I don't think is very good. Roe v. Wade, what she's trying to say, she could just say, again, I just follow the guidelines, which means whatever was in there, I'll follow it. Just sounds a little bit sneaky the way she's saying, not answering the question directly. And I just answer the questions directly. That's what I want her to do, but she's doing the political thing again. From my eyes, from my point of view.
Is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond.
Excuse me.
Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's the
question?
problem.
Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question.
This is the problem.
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth.
Because
Just
the
look at
child
the
is
governor,
already
former governor of Virginia.
the body,
The
unfortunately,
governor
most
of
likely.
Virginia said, we put the
There's
baby
no
aside,
helping it.
and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump.
But that's
thank you.
something
We're going
that
to turn now to
the
immigration and
mother
border
and
security.
the
We know
doctors
it's an
have
issue
to
that's important to
discuss.
Republicans,
Again,
Democrats,
the
voters
doctors are
across the
not gonna
board
just
in this
terminate a
country.
baby that's
Vice
healthy.
President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job.
He already knows what's
It
coming.
would have allowed us to
You'll see.
stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages.
That's not necessarily true from what I've heard about that, from what he did it. She's saying like he wants to have a problem to run on. Yeah, that's true, but also he didn't want to give Biden any points. Like Biden was basically copying a Republican plan for the border. And a lot of Republicans actually supported him. And they actually got upset at Trump for canceling it, basically, or trying to get it blocked. They're like, what the hell are you doing? This is what we wanted. But basically Trump made the phone call, and he basically told the people that were going to help decide if they could put it into law, to put it into action with the border. Trump called him and said, I don't want to give Biden any points. So keep the border bad, so when I get in, I'll fix it. Again, that's just so selfish, just incredibly selfish. Again, and this has been kind of proven. They have records of him trying to do this, and people came out and talked about it. People in the administration seemed so just selfishness, just a selfish human. He was constantly talking about, oh, the border. And then when somebody actually tries to do something together as a country, okay, right and left, trying to get together, okay, let's work something out. We'll give you a bunch of stuff that you want. Okay. No, it's not about that. You don't make Biden look good. Just keep it for me. I'll deal with it, even though the problem's going to continue until I get into office. Like, what the hell?
In solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
I hate when she repeats it.
And I'll tell you something. He's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
And the trap is set. This is the thing that sets him off. Because you're attacking the one thing that he really actually cares about. Not his children, not his wife, not the country. He cares about his image, his crowd size, dick measuring contest. Now it's going to go all downhill from here. Kamala set the trap. Now he's going to lose his mind.
I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
It's all fake. It's
and
all...
then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
God,
and this is what's happening in our country.
Human.
And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned,
I'm going to let it go.
The reason
comment
they go
on this
is
later.
they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on
Check his ass. Check it. Check Kamala too. I don't give a shit. Check them all. This is what you need to do. You need to just... I feel, though, from watching this thing, they probably should have been a little harder on Kamala, honestly. But again, the thing is, if you're being fair, yeah, we should check Kamala, but his stuff is so insane. If you're trying to do decent journalism or just trying to control the debate, you can't let him say these insane things. That's the thing. So they knew he was going to say this crap, because recently there were some kind of news stories that like some kind of immigrants were like invading like some states and that they're eating animals and stuff like that. I saw some stories about that. And it seems, again, remember, whenever you see a story that's kind of wild, the first stories, do not just take it at face value. Don't believe it like at that moment. Think this is crazy. Let me wait maybe like a week and see how much information comes out. The first couple of days people are saying this. Now after a week people check, and it seems the county basically said there's nothing like that happening. There might have been some weird crazy situation where it like a crazy person maybe attacked an animal or stole an animal or did something. But that might not have been actually like an immigrant. It might have just been an American doing these type of things. This is the kind of thing that, or like multiple stories get mixed together and then people spread that information, but it might be pieces from different stories. And again, he's basically, I just saw it on the TV. I saw it on the TV. Yeah, that TV story might not be true. Yeah. Anyways, let's see.
Television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say
clear...
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking
television
it from the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember.
Stop. Dick Cheney. Boom. All right. Kamala Harris got right now the support from Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney and Dick Cheney's daughter. Honestly, Dick Cheney, fuck off. Okay, you're responsible for the deaths of so many American soldiers, and again, you basically pushed America into wars they shouldn't have been in, just to get oil and again, when 9/11 happened, America invaded the wrong country and they knew it, and Dick Cheney was behind it. So Dick Cheney, piss off. And Kamala should, I don't know why she's saying that. I got whatever. Again, she's trying to, I get support from, no, you don't want his support whatsoever. He's garbage.
Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
No,
Not
you
so
didn't.
graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job. And they never...
I'm sorry. Keep stopping it. He fired them because they talked back. Any time, or he threw them under the bus when anything bad happened from his decisions, his judgments, he would throw other people. It's not my fault. Just compare the turnover rate. How many people has Trump lost? There's always some people that end up losing confidence in their leaders, and they go, I'm out, this is not what I signed up for. But if you compare the amount of Trump's staff turnover rate to anybody else, it's not even close. People getting fired, but also people quitting. And a lot of times when they were fired, it's because they would challenge Trump, or they wouldn't fall in line in lockstep because they still had some form of loyalty to the country. You're like, this is too much. We can't do this. You're fired. That's why. And again, Trump constantly says he's the best boss. He picks the best people. He picks the best people, but he constantly has to fire them. All right.
Never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far.
Okay.
In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
That was 2 times. Wait a minute. Let's pause for.
Let me continue on immigration.
Okay.
It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you called this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world.
Have you noticed how the tone after she attacked his crowds?
All over the world, except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It
not
was
true.
A fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal.
Nope, no, you're not.
You saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York, every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's
okay, so this is the thing. Just basic stuff. If you check any information of what really happened about the documents. So basically, Trump was caught with documents, top secret documents, if you haven't heard, in his basically his home. Biden was also found with documents in his home. The difference is Biden gave them back when he was asked. That's the difference. Trump didn't. He hid them for a year and over a year. And then the FBI had to raid his house to get them back. And then when they took the files back, they realized actually there's still stuff missing. They contacted Trump again. They say, hey, there's still more stuff. Give it to us. And Trump lied again that he didn't have it. He lied to the FBI first that he didn't have anything. They knew he did. And then he ignored them for like a year. And see, that's the thing. If anybody else did this, they would have been arrested a long time ago. The FBI and the government, they don't want to arrest him. That's one of the big problems. He is a rich man. He is kind of at the top. They don't want to cause any more bigger problems, so they told him, please return it. But he didn't. Biden, they told him, return it. He did, instantly. He told the people, okay, get all the paperwork, send them back, send them back, send them back. He didn't. That's the difference. That's the difference. And then the other stuff about all the cases and stuff like that, again, he lost basically everything. The court that he's talking about, the Supreme Court, is compromised. They found out weeks ago, that months ago now, but people already know that most of the judges have been receiving bribes from other rich people. The court in America at the moment, the Supreme Court, the court of the land, is compromised, and a bunch of the judges he put in there. So they've been shown that they get bribes, so they're gonna, you know, they know what side their bread is buttered on. There you go.
Weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country.
That's why the cases were thrown out.
To try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy.
The person that shot him was a registered Republican.
To democracy,
but most likely the person that shot him was just a sick individual from what we learned.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So
one moment. So I'm going to get back to this at a different time. Right now it's going to be ridiculously late. It's going to be 12:30 where I am right now, and I wake up at like 5:30 in the morning. So we're going to finish this up right now, and when I have some more time, we're going to get back to it. All right.